This next story bites. Vampires were running roughshod all over Great Britain, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. That is, until two men who felt they had a stake in it decided to take matters into their own hands. Were they hailed as heroes or just bat crazy? I'll show myself out. London, 1970, where whispers of an ancient evil spread through the foggy streets of Highgate. A dark figure, tall and menacing, was said to haunt the shadows of Highgate Cemetery. Was it a restless spirit or something far more sinister? Tonight, we delve into the legend of the Highgate Vampire, one of the most infamous paranormal mysteries in modern times. Sean Manchester, a British author, self-proclaimed vampire hunter, and bishop of the Old Catholic Church's Ordo Sancti Graal, or Order of the Holy Grail, has spent decades claiming to battle the forces of darkness. His religious legitimacy is widely debated, with no mainstream recognition. Yet he presents himself as an exorcist and expert on supernatural phenomena, particularly vampirism. Born in the United Kingdom in the early 1940s, details of Manchester's early life remain scarce. He has long been secretive about his past, but from a young age, he developed a fascination with the occult, exorcisms, and, most notably, vampires. To some, he is a dedicated investigator of the unknown. To others, he is a sensationalist, weaving Gothic horror into real-world mystery. Among his many claims, one case stands above the rest: the infamous Highgate Vampire. Highgate Cemetery, one of London's most famous burial sites, was established in 1839. By the mid-20th century, it had fallen into eerie disrepair, its once grand tombs now shrouded in overgrown vegetation and shadows. Then in 1969, strange reports began to surface. A dark figure was seen gliding among the graves, glowing red eyes piercing through the night. Witnesses spoke of an unnerving presence, waves of paralyzing fear, and sudden drops in temperature. Letters flooded local newspapers, fueling the hysteria. Two men soon emerged at the heart of the mystery: Sean Manchester and David Farrant. Both claimed to investigate the case, but their approaches, as well as their beliefs, were vastly different. Manchester was convinced the entity was a king vampire of the undead, a medieval Romanian nobleman brought to England in a coffin by dark practitioners. He warned that the vampire was growing stronger, feeding on the life force of the living. Farrant, on the other hand, dismissed the vampire theory. He believed the presence at Highgate was a ghostly or psychic entity, not a bloodthirsty revenant. His investigations led to multiple encounters at the cemetery, one of which resulted in his arrest for trespassing. On Friday, the 13th of March, 1970, after television interviews with both Manchester and Farrant, the hysteria reached its peak. That night, a mob of over 100 people stormed Highgate Cemetery. Armed with wooden stakes, crucifixes, and torches, they climbed over locked gates and broke into tombs, desperate to find the alleged vampire. Shadowy figures were seen darting through the cemetery, but no definitive proof of a vampire was found. Instead, graves were desecrated, corpses disturbed, and police were forced to intervene. Manchester claimed the vampire had escaped, but his hunt was far from over. In the following months, he claimed to have tracked the entity to a hidden vault. According to his account, he and his team found the undead creature lying in its coffin. Without hesitation, he drove a wooden stake through its heart, performed an exorcism, and later burned the remains. There was, of course, no official confirmation of these events, no evidence, no witnesses beyond those in Manchester's circle. Critics dismissed the account as fantasy, an extension of the Gothic horror Manchester so often embraced. Meanwhile, David Farrant continued his own paranormal work, but his time at Highgate brought legal trouble. In August 1970, police caught him inside the cemetery holding a crucifix and a wooden stake. In 1974, he was again arrested for trespassing and grave desecration, though he maintained his innocence. Manchester and Farrant's rivalry became legendary, lasting decades, with both accusing the other of sensationalism and deception. But Manchester's vampire hunting didn't stop at Highgate. According to Sean, the Highgate Vampire was not the last of its kind. He claimed that a second vampire, Louisa Ferenzi, was awakened after his destruction of the Highgate entity. A supposed 17th or 18th century Eastern European noblewoman, Ferenzi was believed to be a disciple, or perhaps a lover, of the Highgate Vampire. Manchester alleged that she continued his dark legacy, conducting occult rituals and draining the life force of the living. He claimed to have tracked her to an undisclosed location and once again carried out a vampire slaying ritual, staking her heart and destroying her remains. No official records, no verified evidence, just Manchester's word. Perhaps the strangest of Manchester's vampire cases surrounds Robin Hood's grave in Kirklees Park, West Yorkshire. The site, long associated with ghostly legends, became the subject of bizarre claims of vampirism in the late 20th century. Manchester suggested that paranormal disturbances near the grave could be linked to a vampire, though no historical or physical evidence supports this theory. Unlike Highgate, Manchester never claimed to have conducted an exorcism at the site, though reports suggested he investigated it. David Farrant, too, explored the area, but dismissed any notions of vampirism. He believed the hauntings were ghostly in nature and not the work of the undead. The Highgate Vampire case remains one of the most debated paranormal mysteries of modern times. Skeptics argue that the overgrown cemetery, its crumbling tombs, and eerie silence may have played tricks on the imagination. As media coverage exploded, so too did the stories, blurring the line between fact and fiction. Some accounts may have been exaggeration, others the work of thrill seekers drawn to the mystery. Yet despite the doubt, the legend refuses to fade. To this day, Highgate Cemetery remains a magnet for paranormal investigators and those who dare to seek the unknown. As for Sean Manchester, he remains a controversial figure. While he keeps a low public profile, he continues to engage in paranormal discussions. Following David Farrant's death in 2019, Manchester wrote a respectful obituary, yet even in death their rivalry was not forgotten. Later reports suggested he became involved in disputes over Farrant's personal records, stirring further controversy. For some, Manchester is a true believer, a man who dedicated his life to fighting the darkness. For others, he is a storyteller, weaving Gothic fiction into real-world events. The truth? Perhaps that mystery is best left to the shadows. Was the Highgate Vampire an undead entity lurking among the tombs, or the result of mass hysteria fueled by Gothic imaginations? Even now, strange occurrences continue to be reported within the cemetery's crumbling walls. Unexplained shadows, icy chills, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Perhaps the Highgate Vampire was never vanquished, or perhaps it was never there to begin with. But one thing is certain, its legend refuses to die.